Hey, good people, it's Minister Kenita Smith, and today's pearl is about not coming into agreement with the enemy. So often we come into agreement with everything the enemy has to say about us. If we're told we're slow, we believe we're slow. If we're told we're not intelligent, we believe we're not intelligent. And we come into agreement with every negative thing that someone says, but we're not as quick to receive the positive things that people say. So what I want to do is I want to talk to you about doing that. We don't need to do that because it opens up doors for the enemy to operate in our lives. It gives him a legal right to say, oh, they think this way too. So now I can come into agreement with that and wreak havoc in their life. And we don't want to give the enemy that kind of power. So let's take you to scripture because some of us need book, chapter, verse, right? So let's go to 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 16. I'm going to read it into your hearing. It says, what agreement has the temple of God with idols? For we are the temple of the living God, as God said. I will make my dwelling among them and walk among them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. The worst thing we can do is give the enemy the power that God said we had. Remember, Jesus said that if we come together and come into agreement with one another, anything that we ask in his name, we can have it. So why would we give that same authority and power to the enemy? Look at the people in the Bible. When they came into agreement with the enemy, what happened to them? When Eve came into agreement with the serpent, we ended up having to go through all kinds of stuff as women that we don't really want to go through, but thanks to Eve, because she wanted to come into agreement with the enemy, here we go, going through all these things. You know, we could have been having children with no pain, but now we got to have pain, all of this stuff that we don't desire, but because she came to the agreement with the enemy, it destroyed us spiritually. It made us spiritually unclean, and we couldn't do the things that they were enjoying in the garden before. When Judas Iscariot came into agreement with the enemy, it destroyed him. He came into agreement with the plans of Pharisees and with thieves, and that destroyed him. It gave us salvation, but it destroyed him. His whole plan for his life was ruined. And then lastly, when King Saul, remember the first king of Israel? He was the first one chosen. Everybody wanted him. He had it good. God gave him favor. But as soon as he was not obedient to what God asked him to do when he went to the Amalekites and he went to kill them, and we can get all into them ites later. We're not going there. But when he did not agree, when he didn't do what the Lord asked him to do, then he gave into fear. And that opened up a door for him, and he lost his kingdom. He lost that authority. He was no longer anointed king at that very moment that he came into agreement with the enemy. So what does that mean for you? The very moment that you come into agreement with the enemy, whether you mean to or not, whether you're subtle about it or not, you're saying, maybe the devil knows better about my life and about me than my creator does. And you're saying that that's okay. We don't want to give him that kind of root over our life. We don't want to give him that kind of power. So let's not do it. Let's not come into agreement with the enemy. So that's our pearl for this week is don't come into agreement with the enemy. Let's work on receiving the positive about ourselves and replaying that in our hearts and our minds and just knowing that God created us great and competent and strong and lively, and there is much more that he has for us to do. So you all have a good rest of your week. And remember, don't come into agreement with the enemy.